Welcome to a regular episode of Pound for Pound Box Report. To regular followers, subscribers, and whatever we did a special post-fight show earlier in this week. Back to our regular format this evening. Joining me this evening, Gail from Communities Digital News, Daniel from The Inscriber, Jacob from Jab Hook, Scorsese. What's going on, lady and gents?
Welcome back. It's a bonus show this week.
Yeah.
Love it.
Indeed. For those who are new to the show, as I say always to begin the show, Pound for Pound Box Report, live YouTube show / blog, as well as podcast discussing all things boxing. The motto is when boxing is good, we will talk about it. When it's bad, we will talk about it. Bottom line is, as long as it's out the sweet science, we will talk about it. If you want to find out all information regarding Pound for Pound Box Report, please check out the blog page, p4pboxingreport.wordpress.com is the link. Check the right of the page where you will find links to our pages, channels on YouTube, G+, Twitter, Tumblr, as well as links to where to listen to the show on SoundCloud, iTunes, Google Play Music, Player FM, Stitcher Radio, and Mixcloud. Also, since I said earlier, I'm in the fitness game now. I'm in the fitness link game. I'm going to be posting links to my online fitness stuff. So I'll probably put the links up tonight. So look out for that. Let's get the show started. Tuesday morning, I mentioned we did a live episode. We did a live episode Tuesday morning, rarity for Pound. First time ever did a morning recording, live recap of Shinsuke Yamanaka, Luis Nery pummeling Yamanaka, winning by fourth round TKO. We talked about it early Tuesday morning. I want to talk about it even more so tonight. Give some time to digest what we saw, to maybe watch the fight a couple more times, and also get the insight of our regulars. I'll start with you, Jacob, and then you, Scorsese, since you were not on for the live show Tuesday morning. Give you an opportunity to talk about Yamanaka and Nery and the new WBC bantamweight champion of the world, Luis Pantera Nery.
Yeah, I mean, it was a pretty exciting fight for as long as it lasted. A little bit. I actually thought Yamanaka was up 2-1 going into the fourth round. But I mean, there were some really close rounds. I thought the second round was an obvious Nery round, but to me, and I know I'm probably, this will spark some conversation. I thought the fight was maybe stopped a little early. For me, it's not that I want people to get hurt and whatnot, but for someone that's been a champion and has defended as many times as Yamanaka, I usually, would want them to get the opportunity to at least get knocked down or, and see if they want to get back up or, to call it. But his corner, made the call. Obviously they saw something. There's a couple times where he was, on the ropes, and he actually threw back, and he was getting hit, but Nery did miss a lot though also. But it didn't seem like the blows were like super connecting, like, as flush as maybe they would have liked. But Nery, you get your hats off to him. He went into the Lion's Den. I'm not going to say there was a hostile crowd because they're way more respectful over there in Japan. Like they don't do the booing and all that stuff. They clap and they give him his due. But he went there. He put it on Yamanaka, and good on him. I mean, it's not his fault if a fight gets stopped. I mean, he went to do his job, and I think he was smart to pounce on Yamanaka, early. And I think most of the panel did pick Nery to win. So I know a lot of people are saying upset, but I thought it was potentially a very close fight. And I think a lot of people were picking Nery, and as a young, hungry guy. And so, a good win. We'll see where Yamanaka goes from here. But Nery, I know he's going to be in Carson, I believe, for the Superfly. So we'll see if he gets another good fight.
Smart move on his part. I'll go to you, Scorsese. Your analysis of what went down.
I'm just not sure. Like I never watched Nery. I have watched Yamanaka. I never made much of Yamanaka, unlike some others. I know some people had him top 10 pound for pound. I didn't know if it was based on his resume, based on what they seen from him. And I just looked and I said, well, I don't think it could be based on the resume and the way he completed the resume, the way he let's say the way he got wins over that resume. When you look at the Moreno fight, and I'm just thinking to myself, well, that doesn't draw out pound for pound. Then I seen it again in this bout where it's a lot of 1-2, a lot of 1-2. He had the center ring, and Nery was continuously walking into his left hand. I understand both are southpaw, so when I say walking into the left hand, what I mean is the guy who's center ring. He's the guy walking you, in my opinion. He's the guy controlling the ring. So if you're going to your right and your southpaw, you're walking in his left, not vice versa. And this continued to happen, and this man was still finding trouble to place that shot. And eventually, the young gun just lost respect for him, and it showed. And I just don't. I don't know. I mean, I don't want to see him wait for 115 pounders. If 118 isn't thriving, maybe get the guy that beat up on Rashid Warren. Don't want to see no Jamie McDonald type fight, thing like that. If he can stay there, if he has to, fine, wait on 115 pounders. But if not, there's 122-pound champions that I like, and I would like to see him box those guys. I don't think I need a rematch of this here fight. I can
Problem is he's
understand
not.
it based on the reign of Yamanaka. I can understand a rematch, but I wouldn't have to see it.
Problem is he's not going to make any money fighting those guys at 122 pounds. The money's at 115. Wait for those guys to go up. I mean, to Jacob's point, there's a reason that he's going to be in September 9th.
Yeah.
You see the big fights, you see the money. I'll go to you, Daniel, and then you, Gail. Thoughts a couple of days later, after the fight, having digested everything. Your thoughts?
We did say this was the fight between, like I said, the main guy at 118 and his heir apparent. And his heir apparent took the throne that fight. Now, it's different because luckily, thanks to you, Mike, we were able to watch both the Japanese and the Mexican broadcast. And you could tell the difference in between both broadcasts, how they were viewing the fight. But all of them pretty much had the same amount of moments. You saw Yamanaka trying to land the left hand. You saw Nery take a pretty good left hand, which means he does have a pretty decent beard. And then somewhere around, I think in the late third round, he knew that one of his punches hurt Yamanaka. But wasn't going to go full bore because, A, the round was almost over, and B, he knew he had the fourth. And just the way he came in from the beginning, especially, I forgot what minute it was, that beautiful, beautiful left hook. Landed flush in Yamanaka's chin, and that was all she wrote. What got me probably most is the reaction. The reaction afterwards, because we have to remember the referee wasn't the one that stopped it. Yamanaka's corner ran to him to stop it. And it was a bit reminiscent to the way Marco Antonio Barrera's corner gave up the fight with Manny Pacquiao after the beating that he was getting at the hands of Manny. It was more sustained. It was really, really good action, and you could just tell how much it meant to both parties. Nery were obviously happy. He's 22 years old, champion, holder the main belt that matters to Mexican fighters. And Yamanaka, like you could tell, like as soon as they put him in his corner stool, he did not get up for the entire time that Nery was announced as the winner. But then when he mentioned to him his winner, as saying, at least the Japanese audience, I guess, was saying, "Thank you, Shinsuke," the way he just openly wept. And pretty much let his emotions out. Showed how much that fight meant to him, because he was going after a record for bantamweight defenses. And unfortunately, he's not going to be able to do it.
Well,
And
technically, he wasn't going after defenses for bantamweight defenses. He was going after all-time Japanese title defenses.
oh yeah, that's right. I forgot which if it was division or country, but either way, like you could tell, he was so close. He was so close to achieve it, and to have it pretty much end the way it ended. So let's say he didn't give up. Like his corner was the one that ran across the ring to save him from himself. And we could just tell, like, the Bushido spirit is there. The pride was there. You could tell that crowd was stunned, absolutely stunned, when the fight was stopped. And like I said, it does spell a pretty sharp decline in Japanese fighters being champions lately. So it was, like I said, really good fight. Nery does have to work on a couple of things. Like Scorsese mentioned, he did left himself open for the left hand by Yamanaka. But when you beat the man, you do become the man in the way.
Yeah.
So in this case, looking at it for the future, yeah, you can wait on the Superfly guys. Or you can go after a guy that, given his height and reach, could present a pretty decent challenge in Solani Tete. As far as Yamanaka, there's not much you can do, unfortunately. Like, this was supposed to be the build-up to an eventual fight with Inoue, when Inoue was to move up to 118 pounds. You can still make that fight, but it just now won't be as significant. And in all honesty, there is no point in Yamanaka trying to rematch Nery. No point at all.
Jacob, within his analysis, mentioned that he felt that the stoppage was a bit early. I'm going to say I disagree to a point because of the way, not only the way the corner went in the fight, and see, when Moreno put Yamanaka down, you could tell that Yamanaka to land stuff and do damage, and he ultimately did, because Moreno is not a finisher. Moreno is not really a puncher. He's not aggressive. This is a different kind of dude with Nery. You can tell that Nery, he has that eye. He has that little bit of meanness to him. He has that aggression. And starting in round 2, Yamanaka at the end of the round landed a big shot on Nery, and yet Nery took it. Even though Yamanaka went back to the corner smiling, I thought, okay, maybe he landed. He saw something. In round 3, that's when Nery started to come on, and when Nery started to come on, you could just see it. It was just like an avalanche. The train was rolling. And to Scorsese's point, once he found out that once Nery felt the power of Yamanaka, and he said that he could take it, and yet he could still get to Yamanaka with big punches, the fight was done. And you saw what you saw in round 4. So that's why I disagree to a certain extent, Jacob, with your thoughts about the early stoppage. We will agree to disagree. I want to go to you, Gail. Talk about the fight itself after you've had some time to digest. I mean, I said we was up early. It was what, 8:30 my time, Tuesday morning, 5 o'clock, Gail's time out there in California. Now that you finally fully awake now and had a couple of days to rest.
Holy moly. Yeah.
Talk about the fight, and also kind of piggyback on Daniel's thoughts about the future for both Yamanaka and Nery. Is Yamanaka done? Is it time for him to call it a day? And as well as Luis Nery, because again, from that 115 to 122 pound landscape, the door is open for him. The door is open. And let me say before you answer, he's going to be there. If HBO doesn't mention him, they're failing. If they don't try to sign him up for a title defense, say in late 2017, early 2018, they're failing. He is the dude right now in that division that people got their eye on.
He absolutely is. Yeah, it was crack early. I'm not quite as much of a vampire as you are, Michael, but man, a 4 a.m. wake up call, that was just brutal. But you know what? They made it worth it. And all 11 and a half minutes of that fight, it was worth it. You know, in retrospect, what I really liked seeing out of Nery is, for as young as he is, 22 years old, he's very patient. He appeared nervous in the early first part of the fight, first round, but he settled down, and it's understandable. First fight out of Mexico, and here he is in Tokyo, Japan, you know, with the entire nation of Japan looking at him. You know, I don't care who you are. You're in a strange country, a strange language, strange surroundings, food. He's handled himself really, really well, especially at that age. And he mixed up his punch selection so beautifully. He's not one of those guys that relies on just one weapon. He did a lot of good body work. And somebody mentioned midway through the third round, he knew he'd hurt Yamanaka. A lot of that sting came from a classic left hook to the liver, really well delivered. And he delivered enough body work early to start making those shots to the head really count. And then the writing was on the wall. I am never, ever going to criticize a stoppage in boxing unless I'm the one who's done it. That's unlikely. Whether it's from the referee or the corner. They're there. Their job is to protect the boxer, sometimes from himself. They're the only line of defense he has. We've seen too many things go wrong when a guy is allowed just one more punch or to get up from just one more knockdown. I've been sadly following the recovery of Daniel Twitch Franco after being knocked down 3 times and seemingly popping right back up on a recent toe-to-toe Tuesday a few months ago. You don't want that to happen to anybody. And nobody knows their fighter better than his corner. So when I hear the corner stopped it, that is good enough for me. No second guessing involved. His head was getting snapped back and forth pretty well. And yes, he was on his feet, but Yamanaka is a real veteran of the game at 34. And a lot of those guys, it's muscle memory staying on your feet. He's not consciously deciding to stay on his feet. He's up against the ropes. His body knows where he is and what it's supposed to do, and that's what's happening there. What it should have happened, which was very unfortunate, is, for God's sakes, why didn't he take a knee, buy himself time, get out of the round? Now, maybe the same outcome would have happened, but it would have at least bought him that chance to recover. And referee Michael Griffin was giving him every chance to get out of the round, and the corner decided he just couldn't do it. So here we are with this champion. He was received today back in Tijuana. The mayor threw a big old party and news conference for him, and his promoter was there. And Nery says he wants his first title defense to be in Tijuana. Very interesting and very exciting for those of us in Southern California, particularly me, in their sister city north of the border in San Diego. We'd love to see a big, big ticket fight in Tijuana. But I also wouldn't be surprised if they moved it north of the border. I'm just crossing my fingers that we finally get a big ticket fight here in San Diego. Mexican fans would certainly come here. And you're right. If HBO is smart, they jump on Nery right now. The one good thing HBO has done in the last year or two is pay attention to the smaller weight divisions. And maybe they're letting a lot of the others go. You know, they've sort of lost their grip on the heavyweight division. You know, they're losing their grip on, you know, some of the middle divisions, welterweight, junior middleweight. But they can absolutely own lightweight down if they play their cards right. And that's where a lot of the really exciting talent is. So if they're smart, they get Nery there on camera at StubHub. You know, they show him around. They give him a hero's welcome. They show a little bit of his fight if they can get away with it. You know, and we see what happens. And I think one of his possible next opponents, here's my prediction. I'll tell you who is very, very interested in fighting Nery, who thinks he's ready for a shot, is Southern California-based Colombian fighter Oscar Negrete. Negrete really wants a shot at Nery, and that's a makeable fight. So we'll see. He was on the he's been on a couple of Golden Boy undercards. He's fairly well known in Southern California and pretty well liked. His manager is a very well liked guy, very ambitious for him, and I think you might see Negrete and Nery before the end of the year, maybe somewhere here in San Diego or in Tijuana. I don't think we're going to see a rematch. I don't think there's any point to it. There's no rematch clause. And, you know, I think Yamanaka has to seriously think about where he stands in his career, what more he wants to accomplish. He is 34. In the lower weight divisions, that's a pretty advanced age. They age out a little quickly. And maybe he does a farewell fight and calls it a night. We'll see. I wish him well. It was, you know, on the one side, you've got real excitement for this young new champion. On the other side, there was true heartbreak and the kind of, you know, personal defeat and shame that a culture like in Japan feels so deeply. You know, he is sad not just for himself, but they feel the real weight of the nation. And yeah, that's a load. That's a big load for a guy to be carrying around. I hope he shakes that off. That was really tough to watch.
I want to give a shout out to Nauta from Nauta TV on YouTube. Listen to the show live. I sent him an invite. I hope to have him on. He also is one of those in the YTBC who really follows the lighter weight divisions, gives great attention and focus to that. He was just commenting in the chat and read a few comments from him. He talked about, well, Japan, to your point, to your comment, Daniel, about Japanese fighters and the world champions. He mentions that Japan's have 9 champions, by the way. He also says that Nery's just a savage. It's no knock on Yamanaka to lose to him. He's still a top bantam. It's just that Nery's going to break a lot of hearts and a lot of bones during his run. He also says that Nery's going to be the ultimate beneficiary of boxing's greater focus / attention to the super flyweights because he can catch them all on the way up, and he's a problem for all of them. So that's his comments there. Like I said, I hope to have him jump in here on the show. Go ahead, Scorsese.
With his chin, with Yamanaka's chin, is it safe to say he's lucky he didn't face somebody who can? I'm not gonna say he's a pure boxer, Nery, but like Gail said, he did change levels a few times. He did select the hard jab over a hard hook a few times. He did throw some wild punches a few times too, but he switched it up. He doesn't move greatly, but he moves okay. So I'm gonna say he can box a bit, but naturally he can punch. Is it safe to say that Yamanaka was kind of safe because he never fought a punch? Like, not just the early run, like, well, his entire run, where was the top boxing puncher that he fought? Like, I don't see that guy on the resume. And is he did he benefit by not fighting guys like that? That's a question to me, because I've seen the chin cracked on him a few times, and it's just like, this time it completely failed when you're fighting a punch. And I think that could go, somebody can pick that up when they looking at his legacy and say, hey, I don't really think he was that guy. He just happened not to have that guy that was around that can crack him.
Well, who did he have to fight in that division up until Nery?
Yeah, that's
that
what
would be
I'm saying.
Question.
That's what I'm saying. Is he a benefit of that division not having the boxer puncher, or him not stepping in there with a boxer puncher like that? Because I know Solis, I know Moreno, like I said, and both of them, they completely probably well under the 50% ratio. No, and I would say them two are the best opponents he's fought. And maybe Darchinian, but that's not punching at 118 either. So I'm just curious as to think, does anybody else wonder, did he not? Is he a beneficiary of not having punches like that in the division?
Well, I would give Darchinian that fight some credit, and I would give the Moreno fight some credit. Keep in mind, you mentioned Moreno, Abner Mars. Let's be clear here. Abner Mars got away with so much dirty stuff. he should have been disqualified. And if he would have had the points
Possibly.
taken away that he
It's
should
still a good
have,
fight, though.
you take away the roughhouse tactics. Moreno was outboxing Abner Mars in that fight, and we will see what Abner Mars has gone from there.
There's always going to be that aspect. You can always judge it. Like, say, we spoke about it a couple weeks ago when it came to Vladimir Klitschko. It's just you are a product of your division. You're a product of the division you reside over.
Mm-hmm.
It's just mainly it eventually happens. Like I said, it happens to decent fighters. It happens to great fighters. I'll always point out the great Daniel Zaragoza lasted pretty well until he met a young 21-year-old named Eric Morales. And Morales pretty much decimated him. That's pretty much what we saw what happened. It's basically the king is dead, long live the king. When it came to that division, should he be judged a little bit more harshly for it? No, because those accomplishments that he got, the defenses that he was able to get, and the tenure that he did it, is still valuable. The thing about it is eventually you're gonna run into somebody that's better.
To the point
it may take a little bit longer, but it takes a little bit better. Because remember, even the great Bernard Hopkins eventually had to face Jermaine Taylor at some point. So it happens. It's just he's a benefit. He does benefit from this division, but a lot of good champions benefit from the times that they fight.
Yeah, but Klitschko, you mentioned Klitschko. The one credit that we're giving Klitschko on the way out is that he went out. He could have took that 4 rounds and just said, I can't take no more. No, he turned it up and had us talking about maybe rematch. I think there's a bit of a difference there. I mean, like I said, I'm not the biggest expert on Yamanaka's career. I'm not going to say that. But when I watch the fights and I just see the fights, as far as I said, man, I really think if somebody like this came along a while ago, he wouldn't have been standing in the position he was in to have to see this kid. That's just a personal opinion, though, I guess.
And I think it's well noted, Scorsese, but I think to Daniel's point is that, to me, I mean, even if your competition isn't, as good as some other divisions, you're set in the time that you're in. You don't get to choose what the era you get to be in. But it does take some, in my opinion, some skill to be able to rattle off consistent wins, and even a lot of those by KOs, which are definitive wins, regardless of, if you think the competition is A+ or B- or, whatnot. And again, he's been doing this, I don't know, a while. He'd won for a while, since 2008, something like that. And he's getting more wear on his tires. So eventually he's going to come up against somebody that's going to beat him. I mean, it's rare that a boxer will, go undefeated his whole career, and so, I get what you're saying. Did he have maybe the best competition? Or if you're comparing him to some other, divisions or other fighters in different eras, and maybe not, but he still was able to string enough wins together, and some of them were convincing wins. And
you could argue that across the board, training methods are better. The guys in it are overall better. Sports always improve on skill level over the years. My only knock ever against a fighter is when they're not willing to face everyone that's available, everyone that's willing, that they don't turn any significant offer away. And as far as I know, Yamanaka never shied away from fighting anybody. Bring them on. And we aren't completely privy to the talent pool that's in Japan, just like we aren't completely privy to the talent pool that's in Mexico, which is why from time to time, a fighter emerges who's had 15, 20 fights, like a Nery, and we know little about them. We aren't quite clear about what their level of competition has been. All we really have to look at are stats, sometimes YouTube video. And so you really don't know. Plus, everyone can have a bad night. Everyone can have a bad trip overseas. a bad meal, an injury. You know, there's so many other variables. And for you to manage to dodge all those things and get to where Yamanaka was, do credit to him. We all know how tough this sport is. So to criticize, his level of competition wasn't what it would have been if he'd been in the division in this year and this time, you know, I'm not much for fantasy matchups and woulda, shoulda. He did exactly what was asked of him and what he needed to do for his time. And now he's got a decision to make at 34 years old, with, you know, well over 200 rounds of fighting in the bank. Where does he go? Was he smart enough to hang on to all that money? What does his family think? He's got young children, and that can change the equation quite a bit when you've got a family to raise. So we'll see what happens. I wish him well.
I see Naltas finally has joined us. Thanks for joining us, Naltas. I'm giving you the floor right now. You keep your eyes on these on fighters in these smaller weight divisions, just like I do. Just about more than just about anybody within the YTBC or even mainstream hardcore heads who follow boxing on a regular basis. Give you the opportunity right now to give your own personal recap of Nery's stoppage win over Yamanaka and the future for both fighters.
I mean, just very impressive. It was like I said in the chat before I came on here, it was savage. You know, Nery, he started off that first round, you know, trying to kind of measure out Yamanaka. You know, we've seen him in the past, Nery kind of come out like a bat out of hell. And, you know, there was a couple of times where he got clipped. You know, he got clipped a little bit cold, and, you know, he definitely paid for it. And then he came back and then eventually beat down his opponents and stopped them. Here, you could tell that, you know, he had more respect for Yamanaka. You know, he knew that Yamanaka's a long-standing champion over almost 6 years and a number of title defenses. You know, he's trying to break Yoko Gushiken's record and everything. And so, you know, he gave him his due respect. And I thought he was showing pretty good defense as well. You know, he was utilizing kind of a shoulder roll in the southpaw stance. And he was doing really well at kind of rolling away from Yamanaka's left cross. You know, Yamanaka is a guy that's very good at judging distance and timing that left cross especially, even without any kind of lead hand, any kind of jab or anything like that. But he was able to largely kind of make it so that Yamanaka either didn't get full power on it, you know, where he'd be able to kind of roll out of it. And even though it would connect, it wouldn't connect with any real kind of power. It'd just be like the glove touching him. Or otherwise, he'd make him miss completely, you know, by, you know, just that quarter of an inch or half an inch or what have you. You know, in the second and the third round, he pretty much turned it up. As soon as he started moving his hands, you could tell that he had way more power to chin ratio than Yamanaka did. You know, his punches were doing significant damage to Yamanaka and or moving Yamanaka around the ring. Whereas when Yamanaka would land a shot, and Nery would either kind of roll with it, roll out of it, or make it miss, or just be able to at the very least take it. You know, he was able to take what Yamanaka had to give, and or kind of mitigate it. But Yamanaka really wasn't able to do the same thing with his shots, whether it was to the body or to the head. And he mixed up to the body and to the head very well. And, you know, I can see where some people come from with regard to the stoppage of, like, feeling like, you know, Yamanaka deserves to kind of go out on the shield and show, you know, what he's made of, you know, the fact that he's been down before, he's been hurt before, etc. But the thing is, Nery is such a brutal fighter. You know, he's a guy that, like, I'll just drop his name right now, that reminds me of him also, too, Jorge Lara at featherweight. You know, guys like this, you know, guys like James Kirkland, they're not going in there really looking to box you. They can box. Nery can box. He has very good skills, and he's growing with every fight, those skill sets and those techniques. But his mentality is he's trying to hurt you. You know, he's trying to do like what Mike Tyson talked about. He's trying to do what Ann Wolfe talked about. He's trying to put his hands through you. He's trying to do damage to you. Like, there's, with his mentality in the ring, is that you're standing in my way, and if I have to kill you to get past you, that's just what's going to happen. You know, that's the type of fighter that he is.
And let's talk the future here. I was going to say, let's talk the future here. I'm going to ask you about the future. Look, Nery after the bout said he wanted to unify the belt. I can understand that. I mean, Zolani Tete is a very, very good fighter. I think Zolani Tete could to beat this guy, but the obvious is at 115. And when you look at Nery, he's Canelo-like in the sense that he has a unique look. Canelo looks like, I'm going to go there, I'm going to go here. Canelo looks like a red-haired white dude. He looks like a light-skinned, with the beard, he looks like a light-skinned brother. So he has not just a fighting style that's that gravitating and can draw attention and fans. He has a certain look about him that could kind of capture a certain imagination as well. Talk about that in the discussion here about the future. We said earlier in the show that he's going to be in Carson for the Superfly card. So the future of Nery, where does he go from here?
I mean, pretty much the way that I would steer him is, fight your mandatories wherever they may happen to be. I mean, he was the mandatory, so he probably wouldn't have to deal with one for a good little while here. But, basically aim at all the super flyweights coming up. I mean, now Inoue isn't exactly a small guy. Neither is Srisaket Rungvisai. Neither is Carlos Quadras.
Neither is Ancanias either.
Yeah, Joanna Cos, exactly. Exactly. I mean, hey, Rashid Warren was just that bantamweight, even though I doubt that we'll see him there again. He did look really, really good against Arroyo from what I saw. But, the increased attention, the increased money that's there, I just think that Nery might be able to just capitalize on it. He might be almost akin to where Marco Antonio Barrera and Eric Morales were able to kind of capitalize off of the lingering names of like Johnny Tapia and Paulie Ayala, even though Tapia and Ayala didn't really belong at super bantamweight or featherweight.
Am I wrong? Am I jumping the gun here and envisioning a Nery Inouye big money showdown sometime in 2018, 2019?
No, I mean, I could see it. I mean, especially if Inoue comes out on top amongst the Superflies, and considering the fact that him versus Yamanaka was supposed to be the super fight in the near future, at least the domestic Japan super fight, now it looks like we may get a chance to have the entire world really be looking forward to that fight because, Nery's a problem. He's a guy with a style that is very easily gravitated towards from everybody. It's just that, like I said, it's like that Tyson style where as soon as that bell rings, you don't blink because you don't know what's going to wind up happening with the guy. And then now, he's a sensation. As soon as people get the first glimpse of him on HBO, I'm sure they're going to want to see him again, whether they want to see him win, whether they want to see him lose, or what have you. He's definitely going to be somebody that's a bit polarizing in his own regard for a lot of the fandom. But, yeah, I mean, I'm sure that's probably the direction he's going to be steered in. He's promoted by Xanfer, same promoters as Juan Francisco Estrada. So, yeah, I mean, hey, even if Estrada manages to kind of come out on top, we may wind up seeing the two of them. But I'd imagine Inoue would probably be the most likely, considering just the trajectories of everybody involved.
I don't know how long you can stay, but we're going to get into some quick news and notes, and then we're going to talk about Crawford and Indongo. Like I said, I don't know how long you can be on, but I hope you can stay on at least a little while longer. Some quick news and notes. Okay, quick news and notes here. Funky situation here, and I'll just open up for anybody who wants to talk about it. Apparently, Shane Mosley has announced his retirement at age 45 due to kind of complications from botched elbow surgery. Weird situation how the doctor admitted he made a mistake here, was supposed to be in small incision, ended up being a significant gash on his elbow forearm area. That being said, take a quick moment here to talk about the career of one Sugar Shane Mosley.
Well, Shane, he he had a good career, generally speaking, but I mean, in a way, it was somewhat of a career of missed opportunities. I mean, with regard to, he had so much juice, I guess, for lack of a better word, going in, and I mean juice, not in terms of steroids, but juice in terms of like you got the juice now, in terms of like the old Tupac movie.
Well, you're giving the Victor Conte stuff. I'm just saying.
Yeah, maybe a little bit of both, but still, he had a lot of juice coming out of those De La Hoya wins, and it's just he kind of just running into Vernon Forrest, running into Winky Wright, and even later on, beating down Margarito and then wind up having to come across Floyd Mayweather. Unfortunately, it seemed like his biggest wins were then kind of abbreviated by some big losses right afterwards. So it's kind of unfortunate for him because, you know, he's a guy that definitely could have been a bigger star than I think that he was. And I think the name kind of says it all, just, you know, Sugar Shane. They were trying to be like Sugar Ray Leonard, like Sugar Ray Robinson, and try to capture people's imaginations in that fashion. You know, somewhat similar to like the way that Nery does with that kind of Tyson-esqueness about him. They tried to do that with Shane and the Rays. But, you know, overall, though, he definitely had a career that I think a lot of fighters would kill for.
I'll just open up the discussion here for everyone else. I'll just open up the discussion here for everyone else. I mean, look, Mosley, lightweight champion, terrific fighter. It can be argued that from, say, 98, when he really made his big splash on the scene against Demetrius Sabalos on HBO, from that point until the De La Hoya fight in 2000, he was right up there amongst the best fighters in the world, pound for pound, with Roy Jones and Trinidad and the like. But we saw what we saw against Vernon Forrest, and he never really recovered from that. So I'll just though he had his plenty of successful runs, plenty of big wins and whatnot. I mean, who can forget what he did to Margarito? But still, all around terrific fighter. First ballot Hall of Famer, in my opinion. So I'll just open up the discussion for everybody else here in the panel. Talk about the career of Sugar Shane.
Arguably, I'm sorry, Gail?
Well, he dominated at lightweight. He absolutely dominated. He was 32-0 with 30 knockouts as a lightweight. It was when he moved up in weight that his career wobbled around quite a bit. I mean, he had just some spectacular career success. You know, if you look back at his career highlights, they're virtually all of them are at lightweight. Over De La Hoya, at least the first fight. Twice over Fernando Vargas, Mayorga, and Margarito. And man, in retrospect, how much do we love the fact that he beat the crap out of Margarito? You know, and he beat several other folks, but you know, it was when he moved up, and you know, he lost to Forrest twice, he lost to Winky Wright, you know, he also lost to Cotto and Mayweather. I mean, at least his losses were to significant names. And he was never in a boring fight. Never, ever. You could never say that about him. So I agree, Daniel, and jumping off to, you know, his potential for the Hall of Fame, I agree with what you're going to say now.
Yeah. Arguably one of the 3 or 4 best lightweights ever. Now, let's not get it twisted. Nobody's going to take Durant's post as the best lightweight in the world in
I would go with top 3 or 4 lightweights ever, but proceed.
Yeah. Or at least in the modern era. Because, he decimated the lightweight division when he was there. And the De La was probably going to ultimately wind up defining him are the De La Hoya fights. Because...
particularly the first fight.
The first fight, because it meant so much. Him doing what Manny Pacquiao would later on do. Move up 2 divisions. And the fact that it was a significant battle in LA. It was bragging rights for LA. It meant a lot to that city for that fight to happen. You rarely nowadays, at least at that level, get 2 guys from the same hometown legitimately fight out to see who's the best. You either get it when they're really, really early or when it's pretty much past their prime.
Yeah, it was major. I could tell you from being an Angelino my whole life, you know, that was serious. You know, East LA versus Pomona. Yeah, it doesn't take more than 15 minutes to get from one place to the other. So it was definitely heated for sure.
Mm-hmm. And obviously, his career is always going to be more or less. Vernon Forrest is going to be one stain. Manny Pacquiao is going to be another stain. To a lesser extent, Canelo is going to be a stain. But we can't forget the victories that he had, and we can't forget that he also does have a pretty keen mind when it comes to business. Remember, he pulled off a pay-per-view by himself. Pretty much when that fight with Mayorga. And was doing things that now they're never starting to do, particularly putting women on the card in prominent roles.
The ass tap.
There's that. But ultimately, yeah, he's going to be a first ballot Hall of Famer. There's almost nothing that could justify him not being so. And hopefully, like I said, in this case, he does stay retired. Like I said, we've heard it once, we've heard it a billion times. Jacob has always mentioned it. Fighters sometimes don't know when to quit for their own good. But he does have a promotion company, and he does have his son, who he may need guidance of in the ring, because his son is not exactly coming off as shining of a star as his father is.
Yeah. Scorsese, Jacob,
I
your
just say,
thoughts on
since he
the
mentioned
Sugar
that,
Shane?
Mayorga pay-per-view, I just say I was highly entertained by that shit. Not just the ass time. I'm talking about the fight where it's just two old heads going in there, Mayorga being his self, talking shit, really not fighting. Shane really teeing off on. I was intrigued by that. I didn't like the Avanesian fight going out, but overall, I think we could tie it back to Yamanaka some. You see the reign at 135. And when I watched all of those fights, I looked at some of the fighters. I know I would say John Molina was the best opponent. I'm saying, well, he's just better than all of them. But what did he do? He took that leap that Nauta talked about, that Daniel talked about, to fight Oscar De La Hoya. Went up 2 weight divisions. And I think you sometimes just got to take your career into your own hands so people can't ask questions about you. He not only went up, he won the fight. So, when you talking about fighting everybody and not just saying, oh, this guy's a name that Shane fought, yo, that shit legit, man. That resume is legit. Win, lose, or draw. That's what you kind of want to see. He got a UFC kind of record. He got that shit going on. You got the 2 losses to Winky Wright, the 2 to Forrest. Who else you take? Like I said, Kodo. You got shit. About the only person.
Guys, he easily could have avoided, and a lot of fighters nowadays.
There you go. There you go. I mean, it's he done fought so many people that you mess around, you asking, saying, "Hey, why is so and so not on there?" Just because it's so and so, everybody else is there. Why just you nitpick say why Zab Judah ain't there or something? Because everybody seems to make their way to that list. You could say why Spinks ain't there? It's barely.
Corte, Tino Trinidad. That's probably about it.
Yeah, he got that barely list. Like, how didn't you find your way on it when everybody else did? So my boy got that UFC type resume. Win, lose, or draw is respected. Like Daniel said, the Pacquiao bout going to be looked upon badly. But remember, when he had beat Mayorga, he wanted Pacquiao in to come off better as he could. Freddie Roach said, "We ain't fighting you, not yet. You need to do this and do that." And he said, "Hey, you fought Oscar at 40. What? You fought Oscar at 47. They wanted Shane to go to catchweight." So I mean, had a little fear in him. Had people a little fear of him as well, and he should have, because he wasn't just no pure boxer set up. He was a fighter. That's the best way I can explain him. Just a power punching fighter, a person that's gonna show toughness, try to beat you out of there before you can beat him out of that. So it's a dope career.
His dad put it really well. He called his style power boxing. He's looking to box, but he's looking to land everything with power, and that's exactly what he did. He set up power shots. That's his entire way of boxing. Wasn't like, oh, I'm gonna make you miss. And maybe I'll make you pay. It was, I'm gonna make you pay for every mistake that you might possibly make.
Mm-hmm.
And let's talk
Actually,
about
turns out to be a mistake or not.
And let's talk about a quick second about Mosley, the gym legend. Sparring as a teenager with Azuma Nelson, sparring as a teenager with Pintor, not Pintor, I can't remember his name, Albert Davila, sparring as a teenager with Chavez. Talk about Gennaro Hernandez and how he quit in the fight because of a broken nose. Who broke his nose? Shane Mosley in a sparring session. So even before he won his title and made his move, he was known throughout gyms as a beast, as an absolute beast in the gym.
Terror. Like the same way that people were talking about Errol Spence a couple of years ago.
Your thoughts quickly, Jacob.
Yeah, I mean, he had a great career. So, I got to see him fight twice, once against Mayorga, once against Mayorga and then another against Margarito, which was a crazy scene to see, and kind of revitalize his career in a way. He was able to get that fight with Floyd Mayweather, and actually I think to this date it was probably the one that hurt him the most. He actually had Floyd pretty shook in that second round. He lost, got his ass beat the rest of the fight, but he seemed to step up to any challenge. I didn't see him fight Mayorga the second time because he happened to be going against a card at the Staples Center just across the way, which was the Mares Santa Cruz first fight. So was there for that. But, he seemed like an overall good guy. And he, to Gel's point, he was mostly in exciting fights, although I can dispute that the Mayorga fight was a little boring until the very last, where he won with 1 second left. But, the only maybe blemish on his overall career is his semi-involvement with I think it was a Balco scandal. So, I mean, there's some, questionable things that's surrounding there, but again, you can't discredit him for what he's done in his career and going up to his challenges, losing to Vernon Forrest and taking that rematch or getting that rematch. Same thing with Winky Wright, beating De La Hoya, and then, taking on all-comers. So for sure he's going to go down as a Hall of Famer. I hope he does stay out of the ring. It's unfortunate that he has this type of injury through surgery, but hopefully he, does something with promoting. He used to have ties to Golden Boy. I don't know if he's like Bernard Hopkins where he's still involved, but I'd like to see him do something like that, or kind of maybe mentor some young up and coming fighters, but definitely don't want to see him back in the ring again. I think he doesn't have anything left to prove.
A couple other quick news stories before we start to preview all the boxing that's happening, but especially on Saturday in Omaha. I'm going to you, Gail, on this story. It seems like there was some issues with Canelo missing a weigh-in. You took part in a presser in a conference call, I believe it was, with Canelo, with Team Canelo and Team Golovkin. Give us an update here on this weigh-in that Canelo Alvarez missed.
Well, let's go back and set up a little history here. As you might recall, in the Golovkin versus Jacobs fight for all of Golovkin's belts, one of those belts is the IBF belt. The IBF mandates a day of the fight weigh-in with a rehydration clause, and their limit is 10 pounds in the middleweight division. Jacobs blew through that weigh-in the next day. He claims, the story is that he didn't want to wake up early and disrupt his routine to go weigh in. Okay, fine. That meant the IBF belt was off the table for him. So there was a natural question in this week's news conference, which was between the trainers, Eddie Reynoso and Abel Sanchez. And one of the journalists asked Reynoso, so is Canelo going to participate in that second weigh-in, that day of weigh-in for the IBF belt? Now, Reynoso said yes. Sanchez didn't comment. He was smart to stay out of it. But it does beg the question. It's very possible, despite what their assurances are, that he could do the same thing. And we all saw how that benefited Danny Jacobs because he did come in much bigger the day of the fight than Golovkin. So should Canelo decide that that's in his best interest, don't be surprised. The only thing that Sanchez said is that just like in the prior fight with Jacob, Golovkin absolutely would be weighing in and does intend to contest his IBF belt. Now, we already know the WBC belt is off the table because of Canelo's ongoing spat with the WBC. So it'll be real interesting to see if then the IBF belt ends up getting pulled too. In my opinion, it doesn't really diminish the fight as far as the fans are concerned, one bit. But it is a little bit of a tell as to what they're about.
A reaction from everyone here at the panel at the news that Gail just disclosed.
I mean, it doesn't entirely surprise me. I mean, there seems to be a bit of a grudge that's been held from Canelo towards the WBC. I think that Alvarez is a bit of an egomaniac. You know, I think the fact that he was already a superstar, a Televisa-built superstar, and he was a teenager before he was ever any kind of like significant fighter at the world level, has a little bit to do with that. I also think that he has a bit of a chip on his shoulder because of that, because even though he wants everybody to believe that he's the best fighter in the world, the best fighter from Mexico, the best fighter, period, etc. I think that he himself doesn't necessarily quite believe it, but he wants everybody to kind of bow down to that idea as well, including the WBC. And so as far as he's concerned, you know, if they're not going to roll with him, he's just going to roll over him. And as far as him, you know, making these weigh-ins, I think if anything, it might be just last-minute decisions, because I mean Alvarez is a pretty heavy weight drainer and regainer. He was 173 pounds on fight night when he fought James Kirkland. That's the last one that I have for him, and he definitely looked bigger against Julius Chavez Jr. So I wouldn't be surprised to see him in the mid to high 170s against Golovkin, and I could very well see him basically saying, you know, screw all these BS weigh-ins. You know, I'll fight for whatever belts make me not have to do these, because I don't have to play by your rules. You're playing by mine.
Are you going to say something, Scorsese? Daniel?
Nah, I just want them to get this fight out the way.
I think it was. I think Jacob was about to talk before I spoke.
Yeah, Jacob.
Jacob?
Yeah, what I was going to say is that, and I'm not sure what happens, you know, what I don't like, in kind of like with the Jacobs thing, is that, you know, if he wins, but, you know, one of the belts isn't on the line, you don't really get, you know, you're not getting closer to a unified belt holder. So it's kind of, I don't know, some of the stuff is very petty and whatnot, but some of it is the fault of I think the what do you call it, the boxing organizations, sanctioning body, sorry. Because, you know, these fees, I know Cotto did this, was it maybe a couple years ago, where the fees that they want them to pay, these sanctioning fees, you know, become really large. And I think we'll talk about it later with the whole Crawford and Indongo thing. I believe they ponied up $100,000 just for sanctioning fees on itself. But, you know, if Canelo wins, but the WBC belt's not on the line, you know, then it becomes, I don't know if it becomes vacant, and then, you know, someone, you know, they can pick someone to fight for it. But
well, if it becomes vacant, Charlo's going to fight someone for it.
Yeah, but I just don't. It just seems like a missed opportunity. But I can see a scenario, though, because of all the thing that's surrounding Canelo with the whole weight, like you know, how much weight he gains in and out of from weigh-ins to, you know, in between fights and whatnot, and that fluctuation. I could see a situation where he maybe does what Danny Jacobs does and misses the IBF, or the IBF belt isn't on the line, because his last fights, he seems to come in way over the limit, or he seems to look a lot bigger than the limit. So I don't know how they're going to control it this time, because I believe it's just, what, 10 pounds difference?
10 pounds at middleweight is the next day weigh-in limit.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. So I don't know. We'll see what happens. But I think Gail said it. Jacobs did a very, you know, smart thing by saying, you know what, I'm going to try to give myself an advantage here, and, you know, forego this belt, try to win the fight, but give myself an advantage by coming in, you know, the bigger guy.
I think it was cowardly.
Well,
I wouldn't say it was either. I mean, I'd say that if anything, Jacobs probably, you know, he had his meals right after the weigh-in. That evening, he weighed himself again. He was probably like 172 or 173, and he thought, do I really want to starve myself the rest of the night and into the morning for the 12-hour weigh-in before the fight?
If the other guy doing it, if the other guy might have to do it, it's just what you signed up to do. And then to mention he goes in there much taller, much heavier, and he's always on the back foot the whole night. You know, I
Well,
think
I would
the
prefer.
reason
I
I
would
bring that up is because I think Canelo might do the same thing. I think Canelo might just basically see how he feels
I just
after.
hope Canelo whoop
Well,
his ass.
well,
I just hope Canelo whoop his ass. I don't care
I
what
would
these
prefer.
schools
I would prefer though that if they don't think that they're gonna make it, instead of waiting to the last minute, just say I'm not gonna fight for that belt.
There you
You know,
go.
because in
But
my opinion, you're
yeah, but come on, I don't think that was any mistake at all. I think that
Yeah.
was absolutely by design.
Canelo is too
Jacob-
shrewd. He's too
Canelo is,
shrewd.
and Jacob is.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
one thing that made this fight incredibly close. Say what you will about him hiring Chris Algieri, it was absolutely the right thing to do. His nutrition was on point. They played with that weight to give him the best possible advantage the night of the fight. I don't think they ever had any intention of weighing in that morning.
No,
You know,
so.
and hey, if that's what he decides to do, in retrospect, that was an incredibly smart move in his case. And if Canelo says, well, I'm taking a page out of that book too, great. His trainer can say on a conference call to the media whatever he damn well wants on, August 15th. It's not going to matter or be remembered if he wins on September 16th at all. By the way, the WBC belt, which is currently held by Golovkin, just it simply isn't in play. It's not vacant. Canelo can't win it. As long as Golovkin holds it, it's not a problem, and the same thing will happen to the IBF belt. Now, then the sanctioning body has to decide whether it gets vacated.
Well,
Technically, it's not up for play at all.
Well, no, actually, no. Suleiman did say, doesn't matter what, the WBC belt will be defended. So,
but it won't,
but if he loses,
go to Canelo.
It won't go to Canelo. So,
right.
Yeah,
right.
So that means it will become vacant. And
yeah, I'm glad that's the case because from
loses.
what you see from, go ahead, Gil.
If he loses,
yeah,
it's not like it's completely vacated automatically because it's not in play for the fight.
Yeah,
if he loses, they should just give it to Ryota Murata because he beat the crap out of him.
That's a WBA. That's a WBA one.
He's down to still.
I know. I'm just tossing him in there because
No. I completely agree. That was bullshit. What happened to him?
He's going to get his rematch.
What I would like,
hopefully he'll knock him out this time.
I'm glad they putting that belt on the line because from what I've seen from Golovkin and Abel and their camp is, I think they would parade if they was to lose, and I think they would parade around like, hey, we still the champion, sort of like my guy up there at cruiserweight doing right now, just based on how they've done. I'm over this fight. It's finally done. Don't care. I just want Canelo to beat the hell out of him. I want people to learn their lesson on Golovkin and Canelo to beat the hell out of them. That's what I want.
Yeah.
They scales.
Well, the whole thing to me is like, and this is one of the things that irked me about the Jacobs thing. Yeah, they blatantly admitted we had no intentions of making that second day weigh-in. At the same time, though, like I said, I'm one of the people. Okay, if you're not going to follow rules, don't sign a contract that says you are. So, if Canelo signed a contract to it, and Canelo is pretty ornery about keeping some promises. So
that's one of the things. That's
what
crazy,
I think was what Nels said is that he thinks he's the star, so he thinks he can call the shots.
Yeah, he's Cotto like Diva.
Yeah, well, the WBC situation, I can somewhat see his point because they were demanding the purse bid at the time when he was actually being sued, and apparently they were trying to include that the Puerto Rican people that. I think it's Puerto Rico. No, it's not Puerto Rico. It's boxing. I forgot the name of the promotion that was suing Canelo and Golden Boy. They were trying to get
Star Boxing.
Star Boxing. Yeah, there you go. Now, what they were trying to do was they're trying to say, okay, we're going to get all the money fine, including the fight that you're probably going to have with Golovkin at that time. Obviously, Oscar and Canelo didn't want to do that because they know it's a big payday. So they did the business move and dropped the belt. Now they settled that case. All-Star Boxing can't go and claim any other royalties on it because they settled the case. So me personally, I do think the WBC issue is gonna be settled. It'll get settled eventually because, like I said, it is the belt that a lot of Mexican fighters when they look at what the belt they takes most pride in, it's usually the green belt. The IBF, that's going to be a different issue because I haven't seen the IBF take the stand that the WBC apparently is making, where it says it's going to be defended either way. It could just be similar to what they had in a Jacobs fight, where it said, okay, basically it's going to be vacant or not. Pretty much, Golovkin's just going to keep it, and then you go from a division that is one fight away from unifying to a division that's going to have most likely 4 different champions.
Bo, who isn't here this evening, over the past few weeks has given kind of Tim Bradley a new nickname, from the Desert Storm to Timothy Sadly. And news broke this week that Bradley is now off of ESPN's boxing analysis team, being replaced by Andre Ward. And I'll just open it up for anybody who wants to respond. First of all, respond to the news of Ward replacing Bradley. And is the last memory we're going to have of Tim Bradley is him being talked down to about boxing by Stephen A. Smith?
It's fitting. It's fitting. I'm joking. It's not really fitting, but it felt good to me because he just didn't want to take up for himself. Stephen A was just really going at him, and I'm just like, damn, you gonna let him do that to you? And it made me feel how his position was in the welterweight division. A bunch of people that can really just look at him and talk to him and just shit on him. He probably couldn't do nothing about it, so he just left boxing. And when you leave Aram like that, maybe Aram just says, you know what, I was only holding on to you because you was a little money man. Now, get you out of it. Well, I ain't gonna say money man, but you were with me. But he was doing a good job. I mean, I can't criticize the things he was doing on the show. Him and Teddy, that trainer-fighter relationship they had going about the fights, the disagreements. It's gonna be fun to now see Teddy Atlas do the same thing to Andre Ward, because Andre Ward's kind of, Bradley was on my shit list for about 2 years now, and other people didn't agree with it. They agreed late. Andre Ward's been on my shit list for about 1 year or 2 years now, so it's gonna be fun to see Teddy doing the same thing to him, just like he did to B-Hop, just like he did. I mean, Teddy Atlas. Never mind, I'm not going there. But like Teddy Atlas has done this to B-Hop, Bradley, Andre Ward. I like it. People that's on my shit list, go for him, Teddy. I support
you. Any response?
It does forebode a little bit of the rumor mill that supposedly Andre Ward and Top Rank are going to be joining forces soon.
I told you that week. I told you that a month ago.
Yep.
Aram was looking to sign Ward.
Yeah, and I think part of the deal with ESPN is they like, at least on the Top Rank side, they like to have. Okay, they have the play-by-play guy. You have Teddy, and they want an active fighter. And if Tim Bradley's no longer active, that doesn't serve any use. Now, Ward makes a pretty good case. Now, I don't know how that's going to change because remember, he also does HBO from time to time. So we have to see how that's worked out between HBO and ESPN, because we also have to remember we have yet to see Max Kellerman in an ESPN boxing broadcast, either Golden Boy or Top Rank, because of his commitment to HBO. So
isn't Ward's contract almost up though with HBO?
The fighter contract is up. I don't know about the
broadcast. I thought that he had some type of broadcasting contract that was like a year or something like that.
Yeah, one's a little bit longer, I think, than the fighter contract. But they could just easily try to extend it. Because the thing, unfortunately, about HBO is if you have to still depend upon Roy Jones, who does a pretty good job, but you can tell the years of him fighting is starting to get to him.
They got Bernard Hopkins in the wings. It's not going to be an issue.
Lord, give me Roy.
Hopkins is going to slide.
No, because I don't need to hear too many Roy-isms.
Give me Roy. You gonna get Hopkinisms. They even worse.
Oh, you get them both. Yeah, but Hopkins will take Roy's place. That's
Oh no, give
not
me
going to be
Roy.
an issue.
Give me Roy. I think
Kellerman has been very upfront about the fact, even when he's on ESPN, it comes up once in a while. Hey, no, I'm not going to be participating. I got a contract with HBO. He makes no bones about it that is solid. It means that he can do his talk shows and he can participate in other stuff. He and Stephen A. Smith are going to spend a whole week in Vegas poolside hyping up the shit show next week. He can do that.
Mhm.
So he's got plenty to do. I'm not playing a little violin for Max.
No. Well, it's not just playing violin. It's just mainly the business angle of it. Because unfortunately, ESPN, when it comes to boxing, it's like they don't have that deep of a bench to go into.
They do. They're just not using them because Joe Tessitore is a perfectly good play-by-play guy. He does a very good job corralling all the crazy personalities. Lots of people like to watch Teddy. I enjoy him. I gotta say, I get a hell of a charge out of Teddy. So the third guy is sort of inconsequential, but they could be using all kinds of guys, and for God's sakes, they could be using Oscar if they really wanted to, due to their deal with Golden Boy. They've got plenty of talent sitting on the benches that they could call up should they choose to. And absent that, they really should give Bernard Osuna the opportunity. And it's a decided asset on the broadcast trio to have someone who speaks Spanish. And that would certainly fill the bill there. Instead, on the Lomachenko-Mariaga fight, Osuna was sort of running around the Microsoft Theater playing field reporter, which is fine. He drew a paycheck that night, and he lives there. It's not a big deal, but he's perfectly capable as well. But if you want to, if you've got to have in that third seat a retired fighter, you got plenty of them.
I want to go into some fight previews and then hopefully try to, in an attempt to hopefully try to end the show on time for once. What I'm going to do is we're going to talk Crawford and Indongo, but I want to talk about some of the undercard bouts first. I'm going to split it up between certain individuals, and then everybody can convene and talk Crawford and Indongo. I want to use Scorsese first because you mentioned on Twitter that you wanted the opportunity to talk about this Gvozdyk fight with Baker, light heavyweight contest. It seems like a mismatch on paper to me. Give it the floor to talk about it right now.
Yeah, it's definitely a mismatch, and I like I said, I can't stand when people are getting hyped. It's just overblown, out of proportion, and it just continuously happens, and it bothers me. Like I don't mind announcing when boxing makes me mad, and I get a bad rap for it because boxing is known to piss you off. It's hard to be a fan of this sport. You talk about the good, and then they don't want you to say the ugly when all you really want is the good, and it's very easy to get the good out of boxing. There's no law to say we had to have shit and shine when we could just have shine. So this WBC tournament, Joe Smith versus Barrera, Gvozdyk versus Craig Baker. Come on, man. Who else is it? Marcus Brown versus Shawnee Monahan. What the hell is this? Where are these guys coming from? What was they even ranked in the WBC? The first fight, cool. Joe Smith and Barrera, cool. But I mean, to people who saying things like, "Oh, Gvozdyk looks so impressive versus Chilemba," I'm thinking to myself, I'm watching this fight. This guy's getting beat at all ranges in this fight. The next fight, they bring him back versus opponent, nothing like the guy he just beat. When you see it that you've beaten a style well, you find that style again, and you say, hey, I'm keep building them off of this. It happens. Probably ain't the right thing to do. You want to see several styles, but for a promoter, they likely do that. No, they don't go get a guy that can fight at all ranges, give you guy hell and really test him, and then hope he hurts himself again for you can shine. They go get a damn shot out Yuneski Gonzalez, and they beat the hell out of him. And now you continuously see a regression of opponents. And I'm just like, why is the hype right here when you're seeing it cut and clear? The man knocked down off a 10-day notice by my man Tommy Carpensi. There is some skill there, but at this point, he should be ready by now. And he shouldn't be fighting a Craig Baker. They should have had a Joe Smith fight. When Bob Arum heard about the WBC tournament, his quotes was, "We won't fight in the WBC tournament unless that means we're the mandatory right away." He know how boxing works. Stop lying to us and trying to get a little protection line, trying to make a story. You know, sometimes you have to fight the mandatory bout, then the final bout. This joker talking about, "Oh, the only way we gonna do it." You've been around boxing how long? Come on, man. But now you in a 4-6 fight tournament. I don't even know how a damn 6-man tournament is supposed to happen because you got somebody sitting out waiting. You got 2 winners and you got somebody waiting. So it's just the light heavyweight division and the contender rankings seem to piss me off. And this fight is one of the worst ones, right there with Monahan Brown.
So who's your anger against? The individual fighter or the promoters? And who do you think Gvozdyk's supposed to fight when everyone says no?
No. It's not that the promoter knows where his talent is. I feel if like I said, Bob Arum's been around this thing 50 plus years, 60. I don't know, longer maybe. You look at it and you telling me, hey, if the WBC mandates, you don't have anywhere to go to a title. That's where you at in the rankings highest in the WBC. If they mandate you to fight one bout, then one more bout, it to me is sickening to say that you will not doing that, knowing it's a mandatory already out there. That bothers me because it's telling me you ain't trying to really pick up that title. You really have no intentions. You want to keep garnering credit out fighting Chilimbas and hoping Chilimba quits while he's beating you. And that's what happened. He hurts himself and he gets beat. So it's just an all-around frustration with some fans saying the hype is here. This guy's great. The damn guy made a pound-for-pound list I seen. And that shit just lit me the fuck up. And I'm just thinking to myself, this got to stop. Like, the opponents are out there, you're fighting Craig Baker. That's all I know. It shouldn't be happening. Craig Baker lost to Edwin Rodriguez.
I'm going to ask the question again, and this time I actually want an answer. Who is he? who is he supposed to be fighting?
Well, the thing is
names.
Joe Smith. I heard that Joe Smith didn't want to fight. I'm giving it to. I heard Joe Smith didn't want to fight. So I would do what's happening in another division. I can't call what it is. I would say, hey, I can't remember the division that's in. I would go in and I would say, look, well, if the guy that you're trying to mandate doesn't want me to fight, put me in with the mandatory challenger. Don't let John Pascal have the shot. But when you're not trying to push your fighter, you won't get results. When you're just trying to just wait and see it out and get hype and build, that's what's happening. It's happening right in front of our eyes. I know people.
No, hold on.
I can't give you.
Your blame is misplaced. You cannot force a fighter into the ring. So Joe Smith, who's gotten beat, says no.
Arum, they know the game. If that guy says no, go to the WBC and petition them.
And they did.
No, give me the.
And they did. And Elliot Alvarez is the next one, and he took step aside money. So what the hell is the guy supposed to do?
No. He could be fighting. He could have been in Pascal's fight. He could have been in Pascal's fight. Pascal had no business in there.
Who gives a damn about fighting Jean Pascal?
No, he could have been in with Alvarez instead of Pascal being in with Alvarez, but he didn't petition it. He just sit around and said, okay.
Alvarez blew it off. No, Alvarez said no too. So you've got yet again one of these guys who you criticize because they can't get an opponent. Well, that's not their fault. Have you seen Gvozdyk in person? Yes or no? Yes or no?
Yes, several times. I told you, Timberland was beating him. You said in person or on the television?
No, I mean ringside in the arena. No, you have not. I've seen him inside the rings 3 times ringside in person. I have a very good assessment of how good he is. He's good. End of discussion.
I picked fights completely right, basically seeing every fight the man ever fought on the television. I would like to think a television gives you more view of what's going on in the arena.
Absolutely not. You really okay? So do you think that
just was not beating Chilimba? Chilimba was giving this man hell. And what happened after that? The regression of opponents.
Who was standing at the end?
Okay, yeah, injuries happen. Chilimba quit.
Yeah, he did. Yeah, and sometimes the guy quits because he knows he's getting beat.
If you're ducked, look like Baturdia.
You know, the tide turns in fights. They can start one day and end another.
Same situation with Beterbiev. The Cuban backs out for whatever reason. He should have went to the IBF, said, well, put me in here right away. Bermain Stavern did it. Bermain Stavern said, hey, my guy's messed up. I don't want to be fighting mandatories. I'm in shape. I want the champion. Don't make me wait. They didn't make him wait. So they have no excuse to sit around and say, oh, we got to fight Craig Baker. I didn't hear about you petitioning anybody to get a higher up ranked fighters, and I don't like it. And then
when
you want to
talking about a tournament, you've got a lot of moving parts, a lot of promoters who won't play with each other. You know, it doesn't boil down usually to being the fighter's damn fault.
Get mandated.
We've had 2 mandates, blow it off and take either just flat out refuse or take step aside money. You know, there you go.
I was going to skip this. I was going to like break this up, but I'm going to open it up quickly and let everybody else please respond, because I see Nauta is back. Everybody else, please respond to the situation, this back and forth that's going on here.
Well, first, number one, again, if you're going to bring Vietabev, you have to bring up the fact that Devon Michel, you knew damn well, was never going to make that fight in Miami. That fight was always going to be in Canada, and he was doing it in bad faith because he knew damn well Solomon Barrera can't travel to Canada. That's one. Number two, this, you're going to get, unfortunately, when fighters, when you're at Gvozdyk's level where it is your team, it is Klimas, it is Aaron, you're going to do, unfortunately, what they say. And unfortunately, but you're going to do it. You have to get to a certain level where they have to then do what you have to say. That's the problem with it when it comes with fighters like Gvozdyk, because sometimes you can rush him a little bit too fast, and then you get what happened to Shabransky. So I get it. Like, I get why you're kind of mad at the level of competition, but at the end of the day, unfortunately, it is really not up to Gvozdyk at this point of his career. Unmute
your mic now. You got any comments on this? You too as well, Jacob.
What do you call it? I kind of came up on the tail end of it. I'm not entirely sure what the argument is necessarily about, to be honest with you. I just know that Gvozdyk is involved and Beterbiev is, and I don't know if it's just Gvozdyk's level of opposition that's the issue, or what.
Is upset at the level of opposition, and he feels that Gvozdyk, there are other fighters out there for him to fight. He feels that.
Yeah, I mean,
if he's in the position for the mandatory, just go after the champion.
Yeah, I mean, he has a bit of an argument to that, and and I'm kind of in agreement with it. That's, I guess, where Andre Ward came in with the whole Top Rank and ESPN thing, I guess, as well, because I was kind of listening in as I was handling some other business over here. But I mean, Craig Baker isn't the level of opponent anybody really wants to be seeing Gvozdyk fighting. Gvozdyk has moved very quickly in his career. Much like the likes of Lomachenko and Usyk, and honestly, of the 3 of them, I've always been the most impressed with Gvozdyk. So I could see why somebody might hold him to a higher standard with regard to his level of opposition, because at the very least, it seems like he's taking kind of a step back, if not a sidestep, with who he's got in front of him right now. But I mean, if as far as I'm concerned with him, if the opportunities are there for him, he should be able to take them. But I'm not necessarily sure that they are entirely. I mean, I'm not so sure that he's really got an actual shot at getting Ward in the ring, considering how Ward tends to be with regard to the level of control he has, unless maybe Adonis. But even still, then there's a certain degree of complication with regard to the network and stuff like that I do think can be worked out. But it adds a slight layer of complication towards pushing him towards that next level that I frankly do think that he's ready for. So I mean, I see where Scorsese's coming from with it, but I don't necessarily think he's being entirely realistic about him getting those fights and being able to just demand them right now. At the end of the day, he's kind of at the will of the other fighters.
Jacob, any quick comment, or should we move on?
I'm saying demand mandates. when your mandated opponent drops out, demand to go higher. I can't just support you just saying, "Oh, my promoter's not doing it," because then I'm gonna look and say, "Hey, your promoter don't believe in you. That's why they're not doing it." Because there's other promoters that are doing such.
But here's the problem. With the bigger names, there's a bigger risk versus the reward. And if you're going to go against somebody who you fear could take you out, the payday needs to be worth the risk. And Gvozdyk admittedly doesn't have that right now. Same problem that Triple G had earlier in his career, and several other guys who aren't a big enough fan draw, who don't have enough of a purse to offer. And a guy like Ward's going to say, hell no. If you want me to go up against a big young dude like that, it better be worth my time. And it's not. He can't generate income.
What I'm saying is get that mandated, and Ward doesn't have no option. And when he drop a belt, then you can understand I'm putting a belt to his name. I'm putting a belt to his ass. I'm saying you dropping belts because a young fighter want to get at you. But
do you think for a second do you think for a second the sanctioning body is going to let go their biggest moneymaker? Hell no.
But he's in the WBC. He's in the WBC, organization who they famously put another champion in their rankings to fight their champion today. They don't love Adonis Stevenson. It ain't been no love there. So all you should do is, hey, Joe Smith selected to fight Barrera, who's ranked lower than me when we were mandated. I shouldn't hear Bob Arum talking about, we're not going to take 1 or 2 fights to get to the WBC. Well, if one has left you, you're not getting it. Say, we want the mandatory. Let us fight for it. You got ductors. If he doesn't fight us, let us go right to the champion. At least push for it to make me believe in it.
Scorsese, I wouldn't say the WBC hates Adonis. They definitely love that revenue he brings because he brings it better than basically anybody in the division.
Yeah, I don't know. They done something that was unprecedented to him, and it just seemed like, wow, why aren't others?
Dude, they did it. They did it with Golovkin and Canelo.
They did it to Golovkin and Canelo. They did it to Floyd when they mandated Pacquiao. It's not unprecedented.
Well, yeah, you right. But hold on. Was Pacquiao the champion at that time, or was he just knocked out?
No, he was the WBO champion, and then in one of the efforts to make Pac fight in 2014, they put Manny Pacquiao as the mandatory for the WBC.
Okay, you might be right. I thought he had got his belt taken at that point, but it's highly unheard of, I should say. But I wish it wasn't. I actually wish they would rank other champions, but whatever.
Well, that's.
Go ahead, Jacob. Go ahead, Jacob.
I mean, I'm half listening to this conversation, but in the end, I think, and we always say this, you got to be. I think. Is it Naito?
Naito.
Yeah, Naito. He said, be realistic. I mean, we all know what we want. We all know that we want to see the best fight the best. I agree with you, Scorsese. I don't understand why, even if you have a belt with another organization, why you aren't on the list of number one contenders and all that stuff. But at the end of the day, to Gel's point, it is a business. There's a lot of things that are involved in this stuff, and it's just not going to be. We're living in fantasy land if you think all these things are going to fall into place. It is what it is. I mean, it's never going to be perfect. There's too many organizations. There's too many promotions. There's too much kind of wheeling and dealing because people are trying to make money. Business. It's always going to first and foremost be a business. And people need to make money. So if somebody's not bringing something to the table, or an organization isn't getting money, or a promoter can't sell a fight, that's going to dictate the kind of fights that we see. And we all want everybody to step up and do what they want to do, but this is their job and they want to get paid, and that's just what it is.
Brilliant.
Let's move on and talk about some other fights here. I'll go to you, Daniel. Shakur Stevenson. Fighting a fighter by the name of Paz, kind of your report card on Stevenson at this point of his young career.
If I have to give a grade, I would probably give it a B- or a C. He has shown signs of what his potential can be. At the same time, he hasn't shown enough that he probably has that instinct in him. Like, you know how we like people that when they come to fight, they want to finish. He hasn't shown that yet. Now, now to me, maybe just be a product of him being very, very young. It could be a product of him being more vocal, probably on social media. Like he did get, unfortunately, about that little issue with Clarissa Shields. But it's kind of like I said, like a B minus to a C plus. It's not there, but then again, at the same time, he's not really Top Rank's main priority when it comes to the young guys. We know that's Michael Conlan. But eventually, most likely going to have to put in fights. They're going to be much tougher for him. You have to put him in situations where his natural skill just can't have him coast through it. But that all depends, like I said, once again, on the promoter, on Bob Arum. Because at the end of the day, like I said, that's his fighter. And until they reach a certain plateau where, like I said, you're like a Floyd, you're like a Canelo, that you're big enough where you can actually dictate to the promoter what you want, that shoe's going to be on the other foot. Now, I do wish Top Rank would put a little bit more priority on Stevenson, like the way they're doing Conlan, but eventually they're going to get there. The kid has talent. Like you said, there's potential there where he could really, really be good. It's just he's not showing it right now, but I understand the circumstances why he's not showing it right now. Hopefully he'll be able to show it in this fight. I don't know if this fight's going to be on HBO. No, not HBO, sorry, on ESPN. But it should be, like I said, a good experience for him. You're going to be in a big American crowd. You're not anywhere near your hometown, but you're going to be big, raucous crowd. You know they're there you know who they're there to see. But you can get some new fans along the way.
Yeah, you're getting some early exposure in front of a big, captivated crowd. There's going to be a lot of people there. And also just the fact that, the thing is he's younger than Conlan. So I could see why they might focus on Conlan a little bit more, which is why Conlan, I guess, has one extra fight in comparison to Stevenson. He had a much longer amateur career than Stevenson. Stevenson, in a way, he's still kind of learning on the job. He's a younger guy, and he didn't really have a lengthy amateur career. So, I mean, to get as far as he did, it's fairly impressive unto itself. He's only 20. Top Rank, generally speaking, tends to take it a bit more on the slower side with their prospects, especially when they're as young as Stevenson is. So honestly, like when it comes to the prospects of winning some sort of a title, I wouldn't even imagine that they'd probably put him in that position until probably the next Olympic cycle, probably around 2020. Because it just as it stands, I mean, if you're looking at the level of opposition that he's been fighting lately, he's kind of doing what he should do against them with his first couple of opponents. But it's one of those things where they're going to progress him the same way that they've progressed a lot of their fighters in the past. Like if you look at even Miguel Cotto, they kind of progressed him from one level to the next, and then they had him fight Kelson Pinto, the guy that beat him in the amateurs. He just demolished Pinto, showing the difference between the amateurs and the pros. And then they eventually got him into his world title, and then set him right there in Madison Square Garden, and really set up his whole career. Somewhat similar with Floyd Mayweather. They didn't quite take it as slow with him as I think they're going to do with Stevenson. But generally speaking, I mean, they're the best matchmakers in the business for the most part. And so with regard to how they're steering Stevenson, I wouldn't imagine that they're doing it in an incorrect fashion. I mean, look at the wonders that they worked for Chavez Jr., for instance.
Oh God!
Oh God! No, not to know. You did not just say that. No.
I'm just saying. No, they know what they have with each individual fighter, whether they're super high quality or not.
Yeah,
so,
the reason we say it is because Chavez Jr. is one of Gail's favorite fighters.
Yeah. Well, I like Chavez Jr. Mute yourself. I think he was a fantastic talent. To be honest with you, just natural talent, lots of natural talent. The problem is he never translated that talent into educated skill. That was his problem. He was lazy. He wasted that talent. But Stevenson, like most guys with Top Rank, I think they're going to steer him fine, and hopefully he keeps his head out of the nasty social media side of things. I'm not sure if he will, because I don't know, something about him kind of strikes me as being kind of a naive kid. So I don't know. He may have some lumps and bumps on the way up. I'm hoping that we're not looking at another kind of Adrian Broner situation with regard to him as he moves up. Although I don't think he's as ratchet as Broner is. I still think that he might have a tough way to go. They're just growing to be an adult, aside from growing to be a boxing star, which is something that I get from him. But as far as the skills, you know, like kind of like with Chavez Jr., the talent is there. It's up to him and his matchmaking to develop the skills and to translate that talent into skill.
Brian Jennings returns to the ring, Gail, after a couple of years of layoff, contract squabbles and whatnot. Signed a deal with Top Rank, making his return to the ring on this Crawford Indongo undercard against Daniel Martz. I'm asking this question now. I'm going to ask it again next week when we do a show. Is this basically the beginning with the road leading to an eventual showdown with Joseph Parker?
That's what Jennings openly states he wants, and I like that ambition. I like that matchup. I like what we've seen from Jennings. You know, up until Klitschko fought Joshua, one of the better fights against Klitschko, and I'm not counting Tyson Fury. It's just a complete crazy anomaly. But, you know, one of the better opponents Klitschko ever faced was Bryan Jennings. And then he had that unfortunate real meltdown fight against Luis Ortiz. And, you know, I think he's learned a lot. The heavyweights can stick around, you know, in contrast to our discussion early in the podcast tonight about Yamanaka and how the smaller weight divisions age much more quickly. It's just a fact. You know, at the heavyweight end, they've got a little more time. I like what I've seen of him. I like his attitude. He looks like he's in good shape. And, you know, is he going to sit atop the heavyweight division right now? I don't think so. But it doesn't mean he hasn't got some life in the old dog and some good fights left. And I'd love to see him against Joseph Parker. So let's see how he does this weekend. That will really be the tell.
I'll go to you, Jacob, on this last fight. Interesting that Dillian Whyte is coming stateside to fight. We've heard a lot from him lately because of this supposed negotiations, whatever, back and forth between him and Deontay Wilder. Your thoughts that they're deciding to bring him here to fight on this kind of undercard, Jacob?
Well, I mean, it could be a lead up to a Wilder fight. I mean, Wilder's an American heavyweight. He, you know, I think he wants to fight, you know, closer. Was it Alabama? I think closer to his home state. And, you know, you can have a showing on an undercard like this here in America. And if he has a good showing, you know, you could lead that into a fight, you know, a fight between him and Wilder if this whole Ortiz and Stavern thing gets worked out. But, I mean, Dillian Whyte, it's hard. I know he only has one loss, but could potentially, you could say that he lost that fight against Chisora, you know, split decision. You know, I have some problems with Dillian Whyte in the sense that I think he has a decent punch, but I don't know that he has a whole lot more to offer. And so is he going to be able to compete at a higher level? I don't know. So I think it's good that he's getting exposure, you know, to the U.S. market. That's always, it's never a bad thing, I don't think. And I think a lot of fighters, you know, that's the market that they want to break into. And to be on a card like this, in a way, a historical card with this, you know, for unifying the four belts, you know, we'll get some eyes from, depending on where he is in that lineup, and you know if he's going to get TV time or not. But you know, we'll see what he does. I don't know much about his opponent, Malcom Tann. You know, I know he lost his last fight by KO, so I mean, it might just be a showcase fight. So I'm not really too hyped up about it. More so Jennings and the main card.
Let's get to the main event here. True unification bout between Bud Crawford, who has the BO BOBC belt, against Indongo, who has the WBA IBF belt. I want to start the conversation off with you, Scorsese. Your thoughts on the fight, your keys on the fight. Give us your breakdown.
20-1 favorite at Crawford is. I listen to Dwyer a lot, and he talk about fights that are not big, like before the fight, and he talking about how competitive that it can be, and how it's big in retrospect rather than it is leading into it. Like, it's not a lot of hype for this. I seen it. I was talking to a guy building a boxing gym today, and I was like, "Yo, you watching that undisputed fight?" He was like, "Who fighting?" I'm like, "Yo, you building a boxing gym. You call yourself coach," and he didn't know they were fighting. And I'm like, that's for me. I understand it, but for the casual or anybody else, they just don't see how big this can be, and the casinos are helping them not to see it. 20-1, man, that's harsh. 4 belts on 5 belts, 6 belts on the line. Actually, all 6 titles that you can have on the line, and you think it's 20-1, but the keys. Man, I'm not sure what Indongo has to do. He's the longest fighter. He's obviously a bigger puncher than people give him credit for. Because Ricky Burns completely he refused to get hit anymore. He went down like twice in the fight, and they seemed legit. They didn't get caught, but the backpedaling repeatedly. I think Indongo got to be long, got to be willing to punch when Crawford is going backwards. But for Crawford, I don't think there's a key. I just want to see Crawford get aggressive. I want to see what in this point in time. Look, you might not get the credit for beating the guy because Indongo ain't did a lot. People gonna question you. They gonna mention 47. Fine. I'm not a fan of that right now because boxing's young, and I don't want to see Crawford Spence yet. I want to see Spence versus those welterweights, and I want to see Crawford, continue to grow possibly to be a welterweight. But what I want to see personally from Crawford really ain't a key to winning, because he can just be himself and beat just about anybody that's, his size or whatever. But what I would like to see is Crawford really take the fight to Indongo if Indongo shows that he's not on that level. So we can say we saw boxing's hard to do. So we can say that we saw another thing that Terence Crawford does well, like going after somebody, still not getting hit, actually swimming and not getting wet, and putting punches together and putting on a dominant performance in front of I guess a million people will probably watch. I hope they will. And I would just like to be able to give credit, say, yo, I seen another facet of his game. If not really on the win, to me it doesn't even feel like a big undisputed title fight. It just feels like Crawford's supposed to win. But if it's big in retrospect, then I got a gift as a boxing fan, and I'm not mad at that.
Oh, my next.
I was saying, yeah, Daniel, your thoughts.
Well, this is a pretty difficult fight to gauge, simply because of how much of an unknown Indongo is. It is very, very hard to find footage of Indongo prior to him knocking out Taranovsky and then just beating the crap out of Ricky Burns. But that's the unknown that we have to go into when it comes to this fight. It's one of the reasons why the odds aren't the way they are. You gauge it by the evidence you have here, and then when you have little to no evidence, yeah, you kind of have to place those odds the way they are. But with Indongo, he has height, he has reach, and Crawford hasn't seen that since John Molina. But then again, John Molina is a type of fighter that pretty much doesn't use his height and reach. He just goes in some brawls. Indongo has shown that he'll be able to hit you with a hard left and still outbox you. So there's going to be playing a couple of factors when it comes to this fight. On Crawford's side, is Indongo so much of an unknown that you really don't know how to plan for him? And he hasn't exactly, and one thing also, he hasn't exactly given Bud something to latch onto right now. Things may change. Like I said, the weigh-in is tomorrow, so things may change. But Bud always seems to do best when there's something that the other guy does that pisses him off. Like we should mention Derry John when he pretty much said, I'm going to beat you, then I'm going to come back to Omaha and defend my title in your hometown. Pissed him off there. When Hank Lundy dissed his girlfriend, pissed him off there. So he does best. Like I said, he does really his best when there's an anger and there's a chip that he needs to break from the other guy. Indongo has not done that. In fact, like the one interview that they did together, they were as cordial as they could be. So that's on Crawford's side. I do know, if it's on Indongo's side, you have to worry about a little bit overconfidence because he's become the road warrior in the sense of getting titles. He went to Russia and knocked out Trojanowski. He went to Scotland and beat the crap out of Ricky Burns. Now he's going to Terence Crawford's home state, not his hometown, his home state, and try to win belts there. So hopefully he's not in the sense of overconfidence and said, okay, I did it once with this guy, I did it this, the other guy, you're just going to be another guy I do it to. Because Bud is a different animal, especially once you have him turn southpaw. So it's an interesting fight. There's an unknown there in part of Indongo that makes it tough to judge. I can see why Bud, like I said, is the favorite, mainly because we just, by default, we've seen just a lot more of Bud. But should Indongo win? We could argue that that's probably the fastest rise of a boxer that we've seen, at least that drastic of a rise, probably since Manny.
I'll go to you, Gail. Amongst your colleagues in the boxing media, the level of interest here, and how many of your colleagues are essentially saying, don't sleep on this Indongo guy?
Everybody sees him as a live dog. You know, he's dangerous. He's proved twice now that he can come in as the underdog in the, on the champion's turf and take him out. This is certainly a step up from a Trojanowski and a Burns, but he was discounted there too. Is Crawford the favorite? Yes, he still remains the favorite. He's still the known quantity. He's still at home. He's still got all the tools. But you're right, part of the intrigue is we really don't fully know what Indongo has to offer, which makes it intriguing on that level. We all love a little bit of a mystery. We also are going to have a southpaw coming in against Crawford, which is going to be very interesting to see. Is this going to be a southpaw upon southpaw fight, or is this going to be one fight where Crawford doesn't employ that strategy and sticks with a conventional orthodox stance? For purists, there's a lot to really love. And of course, there's the historical significance of the fight. The first time that there would potentially be a unification in the lightweight division here. So historians of boxing, love the weight of this in the scheme of things. It's a rare event. Unfortunately, that shit show that's happening in Vegas a few days down the road has taken a lot of the air out of the room for this fight. And there's nothing you can do about it. But the true fans are watching. He'll get a full house in Nebraska. He's got a tremendous fan base in the Midwest, which I think is an absolute great thing for boxing. And for everybody that complains about, undercards being an afterthought, Bob Arum in general does a very good job with his undercards, and he's given us a terrific one. I believe most of the undercards going to be streaming on the Top Rank stream, so we should be able to get to see all the fights. And it's
going to be on the ESPN app.
That's the wave of the future. I'm glad to see it, and I hope more people take advantage of the Dillian, some of those other undercards, the Jennings fight and so forth. So clear your Saturday, everybody. Well worth it. And I do think we'll get a fairly good audience. It is on ESPN on a Saturday night. You know, we don't have football season quite in full swing yet. I think the biggest competition they might have is what? Little League Baseball World Series playoffs. I think that's about it. So it should draw a pretty good audience. And I like what ESPN is doing, both with Top Rank and with Golden Boy. It's a good thing for boxing to have it on free or close to free TV.
Your keys to the fight now, sir.
Real quick, I just wanted to add, it's actually going to be on the Watch ESPN app, the full undercard, as opposed to Top Rank TV. I guess when they signed their deal with ESPN, they Watch ESPN is going to be streaming that, which is good. You know, I've always liked their stuff, especially because I'm trying to think the most recent, one of the more recent fights that they had, where they were showing like some sort of Hall of Fame thing, and so then they had it on Watch ESPN. As well as
that was the Lomachenko Mariaga debacle. Absolute mess. Yeah,
it was slipping in my mind. But yeah, they were streaming it the entire time on Watch ESPN. Thankfully, you know, so for the people that have that app, you know, just go ahead and download it. It's free. So I love it when they do that. You know, you get a chance to see some of the possible stars of tomorrow and all that good stuff. But getting to the main event, I kind of echo a lot of the sentiments of all you guys. The funny thing about it is I do feel like Julius Indongo is really being underrated and underserved here. You know, I get that this is Terence Crawford's homecoming. I mean, yeah, it's not necessarily in his home city, but this actually means more than it being in his home city, because he's fighting in the capital of Nebraska now. He's not just fighting in Omaha. He's fighting in Lincoln. You know, and it's only an hour away, so it's not like it's any big deal for his hometown crowd to make the trip. Bigger building and everything, the bigger stage. And so it's, you know, Indongo's going to be fighting in front of a hostile crowd, you know, not unlike what Nery just did against Yamanaka. And if he pulls off that victory, that crowd is going to turn from a party into a funeral in a real hurry. And I wouldn't necessarily put it past him to get that victory, because even though there are certain questions about Indongo, he has a style that has been shown to be very difficult for Terence Crawford in the past. You know, he's got long arms. He's taller than Crawford. He's every bit as big muscle mass wise as Crawford. He has a big punch. He carries that punch fairly late as well, you know, as he's showed against Burns. Maybe he has a little bit of that Sergio Martinez in him, where he just has such good conditioning that he's able to carry that power even late and potentially either turn the tide of a fight or hurt you or knock you out or what have you. But it's really going to be up to Crawford to cut off the ring and to time Indongo. And really the main questions about Indongo are, how are his punch resistance, because we haven't seen him hit especially cleanly for the most part. And can he fight on the inside? Because if Crawford is able to cut the ring off on him, then, you know, Indongo will be forced to answer that particular question. He's shown a little bit of it, but not a tremendous amount. And it's kind of funny that that Daniel mentioned kind of Pacquiao's rise to stardom, because I could see Indongo somewhat catching Crawford, not unlike the way kind of Pacquiao stormed onto the scene against Lilo Ledwaba and Marco Antonio Barrera, where it's like, you know, he's just so quick, and he's just so quick with that first snapping shot from the outside going in that you know, it's like a whirlwind. You know, it's so difficult to time. And I could see Crawford being in the hole 4-0, 5-0, 6-0, and then at that point he's going to have to do some very serious changes in order to turn the tide of a fight. I could very well see something like that occurring. Generally, when Crawford's managed to make those adjustments, change up his timing, change up his rhythm, change up his stance, or even start switching stances back and forth, he's been able to get a foothold in the fight and then really start kind of rolling over you, almost like if you're in a street race and your car's turbo doesn't kick in until a very high RPM. Like, that's Crawford, you know, and he all of a sudden now he's catching up to you and passing you. But Indongo's a guy that I could see fighting toe-to-toe as soon as Crawford manages to kick in to that next level, to that next gear. And, you know, I think it might wind up being a very long night for Crawford. I do favor Crawford to win, and in part because he is the home fighter. You know, he is the marquee name on the billing. But I could very well see a sad day in Omaha, or a sad day in Nebraska rather. And if Indongo manages to knock Crawford out, look out. That's that.
Can you imagine? Boy,
It'd remind me of I know Michael, you know what I'm talking about. When Sonny Boy Haro knocked out Ponce Click One Cam.
Oh God!
Oh dear Jesus!
That crowd looked like they had seen somebody die.
I'm saying,
like they went from having a party to watching a funeral.
That we first episode ever Pound for Pound Box Report during Spreecast days. That's the fight we covered. That upset.
Wow, no kidding.
It's interesting that you mentioned that. Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah, they might need to have some, grief counselors on hand. If I mean, it really is a possibility. Indongo is not a walkover, and if he's going to win, chances are it's going to be a shocker.
Yeah.
And let me get Jacob in here. His thoughts on the fight.
Yeah, for me, I'm picking Crawford, and I really think that although Indongo has this length and maybe a different type of style, what Crawford has shown me is when I had picked what's his name, it's escaping me, not Pat, the guy that he unified with.
Oh, Postal,
sorry.
Yeah.
Shit, threw a blank there. But when he had fought Postal, I thought, a lot of people were saying, oh, his length is going to give him trouble, the jabs and all that stuff. And he basically, he went right through. I mean, besides, I think maybe the first round, he totally dominated that fight. I just feel like Crawford is that next kind of elite level superstar. I think he's hungry and he sees an opportunity to, unify the division and, what that can do for him. And although I agree, he seems to feed off, if there's some type of hatred there, or if the other fighter is talking a lot of trash like Lundy or what's his name, Jean. He seems to be able to kind of take the fight, and he's very mental in the sense that or cerebral in the sense that he will. I don't think he minds giving away a few rounds to see where he can get his advantage. So to the earlier point of he might be down 4 rounds, I don't think he sees that as a detriment that he's got to change his style or do something different. I think he's constantly thinking in the ring, and he's using those stances, and he's looking for those opportunities, and he slowly starts to take over the fight, and his belief in himself and his obvious skills, I think, will eventually take him to there. So, although this could be a competitive fight to start off with, I really do think that Crawford's going to show why he belongs on or why he should belong on pound for pound list, and really what this new type of fighter that we're going to see, or a new era fighter that we're going to see, because this is going to lead to bigger fights. And I just think that he's going to be a class above. And I wouldn't be surprised if he gets a stoppage by hurting Indongo. But I mean, my hat's off to both guys for at least making the fight and their camps and everything. Cause we talk about it all the time on trying to see a division unified, and we're finally able to do that. Of course, if it ends in a draw, then we don't, but hopefully that doesn't happen. And I'm just looking forward to seeing a really good fight. I think both fighters will come to fight, and I think Crawford will have his hand raised in the end.
I'm going with Bud here. By eventual decision or stoppage. I think that Indongo, because of his height and length, may pose some problems for Crawford early, but the consistent thing I've seen from Terence Crawford, one of the consistent things is that he has a really good ability to adjust and adapt in a ring, mid-fight, sometimes mid-round. I don't, from what I've seen of Indongo, I haven't seen his ability to adjust. I've only seen him basically fight one way after doing some research. And I really wonder, I can't remember who mentioned it, maybe Naoto or someone mentioned it, Naoto or Daniel. I'm wondering how well does Indongo take a shot to the chin? And I wonder how well does Indongo fight inside? And Scorsese mentioned that he wants to see Crawford basically swim in the ring without getting wet. If Crawford could get in, can can duck and slip the long arms and the long punches of Indongo and get inside, that's my concern because Crawford is an underrated body puncher, and we just don't know how well Indongo can take shots on the inside. So that may be his best route to have Indongo lead, because when Indongo leads, sometimes he leaves himself open, and get inside of Indongo and really go to town on this dude's body, because not only have we not seen Indongo fight inside, short punches. I want to see if he can really throw short punches with power. If he can, Crawford could be in a little bit of trouble. But I think overall, I think the adaptability of Crawford, the diversity of Crawford, the fact that he can do so many different things in there, I think that's going to prove to be the difference here. I think everybody here is picking Crawford. Announcer's picking him, but he's saying don't be surprised don't be surprised if Indongo can pull an upset. And I think, correct me if I'm wrong now, so you're predicting at the very least a closer fight than many others expect.
Yeah, no, I am. I see this being kind of a 7-5-ish type fight. With Crawford is probably most likely winning, or even possibly stopping him late. You know, I could see a stoppage either way, simply because when you have two guys fighting at that higher level that haven't lost and that really don't know how to lose, they're gonna pull out all the stops, and so that makes it that much more likely that you see somebody get knocked out.
Oh, so you
Even if
see a possible scenario where Crawford is behind on the cards late, and then he strikes, and once he strikes, he finishes.
yeah, no, exactly. I could very well see that, or even on the flip side, I could see him getting a little over desperate and getting caught.
Mm.
This is the best kind of fights, though. It's that all those questions, you know, no one can say for certain that, you know, who's going to come on top. So it's kind of one of those best fights because you can see so many different scenarios happening. Did I hear someone say it's 20-1?
Yeah, those are the odds.
Okay, that's ridiculous.
No, those are betting odds. If I'm a bettor, I'd take those odds.
Yeah,
I would too, because that's ridiculous.
Yeah.
Where's Gus?
Gus is probably
Gus
still,
has that. I'm sure Gus has that already.
Yeah. Somewhere Gus is just reeling. He's not reeling, he's just rejoicing of Yamanaka Nery. But
yeah, if you yeah.
He was
probably lit his spliff by now.
You know what? So. Gus was a completely different man on our podcast on Tuesday because he was awake.
Yeah.
And he was lit up. It was great.
Yeah. Well, probably the best thing about it when it comes to this fight is, okay, if they pull off one of the Fight of the Year candidates, from what we've seen this year, when Fight of the Year candidates happen, at least we've seen it in 2017, the loser tends to actually come out better than the winner in some ways. So even if Bud does lose, he may come off a little bit better, because then it makes a rematch much more likely, and it gives him something to really work on, to guide in. And granted, yes, if he loses, all of Bob Arum's plans to throw Crawford in with Pacquiao, I think in 2018, go out the window.
Now that fight's not going to happen.
Yeah, that's not.
I don't think that's going to happen anyway.
Yeah, that's my point. That's not going to
I
happen.
agree.
Anymore. Not at this point. Not at this
Well,
point.
we have
I think
Not at this point.
you're gonna get a horn rematch, and if Pacquiao wins, he'd be smart to run for the hills.
Well, a bit of breaking news here. Aram has announced that fight is close to that rematch is close to being done. The deal is
Yeah.
close to being done.
They've been working on it, and I'm not surprised. I'm not surprised. I mean, their biggest issue is they got to work around the Philippine Senate breaks. So, they've got to figure out what little windows they've got, and whether they can wait.
There's that, and actually, surprisingly enough, we were doing breaking news yesterday. It was supposed to be the Benavidez fight was supposed to be on Bounce. That thing got upgraded to Showtime.
Yeah, well, they've got a tiger by the tail. Pleased to see.
I want to talk about what Daniel said about the about Indongo making it a fight, and not even if he just wins the fight and does a rematch or clause or whatever. I don't know how the contracts are structured on that. I think it'd be best for Terence Crawford's career if Indongo can go in here and make this a hell of a fight, and they become opponents you see fight 2-3 times, and that could slow people down from saying
He has a rival.
that could slow people down from saying jump to 47 and be Spence meat right away, because he's never seen a Spence, and it's sort of unfair. Those 147 guys haven't really cleaned up, and then it's like jump off from the 140 and from 35 to 40 down 47 and clean it up. So I think Indongo, if he brings it and Crawford sees that and Bob Arum doesn't cow out, and I don't think he's never really protected Crawford. That's one thing so far. So if they make
if
that,
anything,
if they
he would probably, if anything, real quick, Scorsese, if anything, he would probably be more willing to protect him from Spence and all the Heyman crew, and have him rematch Indongo 2-3 times or whatever.
Well, but with so many options, you could see so many options, and it being Bob Arum, hell, it being any promoter, you already know we gonna go this route. I hope if this does happen, Daniel made a good point that if this shit even gets even close to 8 rounds to 4, do it again. Do it again. Give Crawford some time and some opponents, like I said, rivals, career opponents, whatever you want to call it, and I'd be happier with boxing. I think I'd be happier with boxing.
Yeah, and ultimately the thing is, I mean, there's something to be said, sure, for a fighter just completely dominating anybody and everybody that they come across. But at the same time, fighters' true greatness is generally measured by their top rivals, the people that push them further, the people that bring every bit of skill and talent and technique out of them.
Yep.
So in that way, then he might be good. And also, being the style that he has and the stance that he has, he may be very, very good preparation for somebody like a Spence down the road.
Last word, Daniel.
No, it's to top it all off, and it's true. Every great fighter has their great opponent. Every great fight, and Bud has not had that to date. But every single fighter, like not to mention, is a fighter has that opponent that just brings something out of them that you don't normally get. Like we mentioned, we saw with Pacquiao when he fought Marquez. We saw it in many ways in Johnny Tapia when he fought Paulie Ayala. This could be a case for Crawford. Maybe Indongo does bring something out of him that we have yet seen it. And it could turn out to be a blessing in disguise, even if he does lose, because then it gives him an opponent. It gives him a rivalry. It gives an opportunity where you as a promoter don't have to force like a passing of the torch fight, because if let's say they even do a trilogy and Crawford wants a winning too, he'll have earned it. He'll have taken the torch without having to go through the torch passing, because by then there's a good chance Pacquiao's already retired. So he'll be the top dog in Top Rank, and he'll be primed and ready at that point, probably to go to 147. And by then, there's probably a good chance that some of the Heyman crew, it's already dissipated, even at the lower end. Granted, with Spence being the top dog at that point.
And I think we're going to start shutting down the show on that note. I'll go around the panel here. Ladies first, as always. I'm Gail from Community Digital News for folks who want to talk the sweet science for folk who want to talk environmental issues, for folks who want to talk Game of Thrones. Let the folks know where they can find you.
Oh, it's going to be a big weekend. We've got this great fight on Saturday. We got Game of Thrones on Sunday. Just fantastic. We don't deserve to live in this era. You can talk to me about all.
Certainly a distraction for what's been going on in the news this past week. That's a good thing.
Well, yeah, and we need a weekend of excellent boxing and television fantasy entertainment. We deserve it. We need it. We need to get away from the nonsense. So if you want to talk to me about those things, my regular boxing column and my Game of Thrones chats are on Community's digital news, which is COMM Digi, DIGI News, comdiginews.com.
Nalta from Nalta TV. It's been a minute since you've been on Pound for Pound. For folks who want to talk the sweet science or anything else, let the folks know where they can hit you up.
Yeah, it's just pretty much kind of how it sounds in my name, NAOTA or NAOTA TV, either way, YouTube and Twitter. I love watching boxing, top to bottom to top, every weight class, every country. Pretty much if you're a world champion, if you're a world titleist, if you're an elite fighter in your division, I'm going to be watching. I'm going to be watching, watch all these fighters, and, from the root to the fruit, as they say. I've covered some of the other things. What was that?
From the rooter to the tutor.
Yeah, exactly. I've been kind of doing some annual reviews so far of some of the 2016 Olympians. I'm going to definitely continue that. I haven't done my one on Stevenson yet because I've been waiting for his upcoming fight this weekend. But there's some guys out there definitely looking like they're going to be a problem in the near future. Just check out my YouTube channel. Once again, it's NAOTA, and you can hit me up on Twitter too. Sometimes, just I don't tweet as much as some people, but I definitely upload videos doing kind of previews and reviews of pretty much all the fights that matter in pretty much every weight class. So I usually drop those. Sometimes even kind of alert people maybe to some guys on the rise that may be somewhat overlooked as well.
And if you want to really get into want to listen to some good discussion or read some good discussion via Twitter, via the YTBC, particularly on the smaller weight fighters, say strawweight up to featherweight. Now to TV. I'm advocating him. He's one of the guys that you really will want to go to and check out his knowledge of those smaller weight fighters from Asia, fighters from Mexico, fighters from Latin America in general. Just terrific channel. So please check him out. Now to TV on YouTube, Now to TV on Twitter. Scorsese, he had to dip out early, so I'll give his information. If you want to check him out on Twitter, at MyLowPlace, all one word, MYLOWPLACE. If you want to check out his channel on YouTube, you can just go to Low Place, #MLPF. So there you go. Go to Daniel from the Inscriber for folks who want to talk. For folks who want to talk the sweet science, for folks who want to talk the NBA, specifically the Miami Heat, and for those who want to check you out, clapping back there, folks at T-Cots and whoever on Twitter. Let the folks know where they can find you.
You can find me on Twitter, Ruckus99. Like I said, I do write for the Inscriber Digital Magazine. I'm thinking to get back to it, and obviously, like I said, I do have my own show with good people for BoxNews.com, Joe and Francis. And I will say next week, we'll talk about the circus, but we won't actually cover the circus, at least not the main event.
Jacob from Jab Hook Boxing. For folks who want to talk the sweet science or want to talk movies, let the folks know where they can hit you up.
Yeah, thanks again, Mike, for having me on the show. Reminder to all those listeners out there, subscribe, write a review, help him out. He's a really great show.
Appreciate it.
In my opinion, the best boxing show. I mean, you guys cover everything from little to small, like you say in your opening. Nothing's too. If it's about boxing, you'll cover it. So I really think you guys do a great job, and thanks for the panel for, just putting that knowledge down and teaching me more and more about boxing. shout out to Gus, to Bo, to Scorsese. I know he had to dip out. And although Scorsese drives me up the fucking wall sometimes, he's a good dude. You know, he's putting in the, you know, I give Scorsese a lot of credit. He puts in the work on his channel, and you know, I can't be mad at him for that. You know, he like I said, sometimes we can get on each other's nerves, but it's all in good fun, and that's the main thing I like about this show, is that everybody's very respectful. Oh, shout out to EJ too. But yeah, I could be found at Twitter, JRATM23. Haven't been writing too much with Jab Hook because of some work things, but I'm trying to get back into it and start writing about boxing. But I love it. I got a couple live fights coming up. You know, I love going to the live shows and supporting all organizations. But and if you want to talk movies, you can catch me on Twitter, and I'm going to be on a podcast coming up soon. I think we're recording tomorrow, so you know, hit me up there.
First of all, I want to give a shout out to Bo. Thank him for joining us early in the morning a couple of days ago to talk Yamanaka and Nery. He couldn't be here because of work. And I also want to give a shout out to Bo because he's anticipating to become a grandfather real soon. His oldest is in the hospital.
And he is, in fact, a grandfather as of 10 hours ago.
Congratulations.
Yeah.
Grandfather Bo.
Everything went well. Everyone's good. And it's a very exciting event for the Pound for Pound family.
Yeah, his oldest delivered a baby. Okay, that means the baby girl must have been delivered. So, yeah, yep. He's a grandfather now, official. So, big shout out to him. Big shout out to Gus. Got him out the Batcave to talk Yamanaka Nery, and because he was awake, he was in prime form. So shout out to those two. Shout out to EJ. Shout out to Chris the Band, Boxing Beats and Rhymes. The Black Burt Sugar of this YouTube-ish. You know who he is. The Black Burt Sugar. You know who he. Why do I forget his name right quick?
Mr. Natty Turner.
Mr. Natty Turner. Had a brain freeze. I'm sorry about that. Sorry, Nana. Sorry, brother. But yeah, shout out to that crew. So yeah, if you want to talk boxing with me, you know what it is. Brother JR. Talk boxing, talk music, and talk fitness, because I am now officially a Beachbody online coach.
Congratulations, Mike.
I will post the links to my online sites on the blog. Should be up early tomorrow. So yeah, if you want to talk any of those things with me, Brother JR on Twitter at BrotherJR76. As I stated to begin the show, if you want to check out all things pound for pound boxing, just please go to the blog page, p4pboxingreport.wordpress.com. On the next episode, we will do a recap of Crawford and Indongo, as well as the fights on the card that we mentioned on the show tonight. And, you know, that event, you know, that money grab. May not talk about the fight itself.
Well, hey, you got Butter Jack.
We do have undercard fights we can talk about.
Correct. We may not talk about
Kodo.
We got Kodo Kamagai and that card.
Talk about
actual
may not talk about may not talk main event, but we'll certainly talk Gervonta Davis and Baldo Jack was fighting Nathan Cleverly on the undercard. Miguel Cotto was fighting also on that same night, which he
Ronnie Rios
this year. Yeah, he stated earlier this year. 2017 is going to be his final year in the sport. Interesting undercard. Ray Vargas, who I really like, based on the way he won his title-winning victory. He's fighting Ronnie Rios on that undercard, making the first defense of the junior featherweight, super bantamweight, however you want to call it. So we will preview again Crawford and Indongo, that undercard, and talk about that event, as well as Cotto, Ray Vargas. So for Gail for Communities Digital News, from Nauta TV, Scorsese, Daniel from The Inscriber, Jacob from Jab Hook. This has been episode 180 of Pound for Pound Boxing Report. Everybody have a good evening. Good night.
Good night.
Good night.
Good night. Good night, Bo. Felicidades, viejo.
Congratulations, Bo.